Now before anything, I first have to address the massive elephant in the room, that being, where the hell have I been? I apologize for being gone as long as I have been, and I also apologize for my reasoning not being very unique. It's mainly because of high school. I'm in the last year of high school, so that has been my primary focus for the past year now. And I have other commitments outside of school, so there's also those things. And I will admit procrastination has had a bit to do with it, but I am trying to improve on that. And speaking of improvements, now that I'm back, I wish to make up for my disappearance by trying to return to consistent uploads. Now on to today's video. This is a video that I've been promising for a while now. If you remember, quite a while ago I promised an interesting video. Again, this was a while ago, and that is because this video actually took me a while, because this involved a lot of research and math, to be specific. Given the title of today's video, you'll understand why. Today I am going to be talking about economics. More specifically, I am going to calculate, or at least attempt to calculate, the worth of the Septim, the currency of Tamriel in the Elder Scrolls series. Also, it felt appropriate to make this video because quite a while ago I made a video about the worth of bottle caps in Fallout. Now that video was basically me just relaying information that was already collected by other people. But I think this one will be better, one because it's more original, because I collected this information myself, a primary source if you will, and I think this one will also be more accurate because there were a few things in the video about bottle caps that I didn't account for. And another interesting thing is that you won't only be hearing about my theories about the economy of Tamriel, you'll also be learning a bit about real-world economics. I sure had to in the making of this video. But I digress because I am dragging this introduction on, as you guys know I love to do, so without further ado, let's try and estimate what the Septim in Tamriel is worth. Now the first, and arguably most important factor that we should address, is the monetary system that would be used in Tamriel. To put it as simply as I can, a monetary system is a system that determines what a currency's value is based on. And these systems are usually divided into three main categories. First, there's the commodity system, in which a specific commodity literally makes up the currency. Then there's the commodity-backed or representative system. In this one, the currency is not made up by a commodity itself, but instead a medium of exchange, i.e. printed or minted money, that's used to represent how much of a commodity is worth. In both of these categories, commodity and commodity-backed, the commodity in question is typically something rare and therefore valuable, like silver or gold. And then the third main category is the fiat system, the most commonly used currency system in the modern age. The value of this currency isn't dictated by any commodity. Instead, it is decreed by legal tender. And in most cases, the legal tender in question is usually performed by a central bank. So now that we've addressed the three monetary systems, we should try and figure out which monetary system Tamriel would use. And it's very safe to eliminate it as being a fiat currency. For one, Tamriel is meant to represent ancient/medieval times, and at those times in our own world, fiat currencies were rare because central banking was rare. And in Tamriel itself, there's no sign of any existence of central banking. Now between commodity and commodity-backed, you may think that it's commodity currency because the currency is gold. But the thing is, if Tamriel, more specifically the Empire, did use a commodity system, then that would mean that you could trade goods for gold even if it wasn't in the form of a septim. You see, the thing about a commodity monetary system is that because the commodity itself is the object of value and the currency, the commodity in question would maintain its value as a currency, regardless of whether or not it was in the shape of a specific currency. For example, if the commodity in question was gold, which would be the case in this instance, then although the currency of gold is typically shaped in the form of a septim coin, if a coin were to be melted down and formed into a new shape, it would retain the same value as a normal septim. But that is not actually the case in Skyrim. In Skyrim, you cannot purchase things with just gold ingots or gold ore pieces. They have to be purchased with septims. So that leaves a commodity-backed currency. More specifically, the gold standard, which is when the commodity that backs the currency is a fixed price of gold within said country, in this instance the Tamrielic Empire. Let's say for argument's sake that in Australia, in our own world, the fixed price of gold was 80,000 Australian dollars per kilogram. That would mean that each Australian dollar would be worth 1 out of 87,000 of 1 kilogram of gold. So now that we know, or at least can suspect, that the Tamrielic Empire uses the gold standard as its standard of currency, we now need to calculate what the price of gold is in Tamriel to calculate the currency from there. Now I do have to start with a disclaimer that this part is largely speculation. In fact, a lot of this video is speculation, but specifically this part, because this part involves weight. And the problem with Skyrim is that we don't actually know what items actually weigh. That's because the weight system that we all know and love in our inventory system is not in kilograms, tons, or any metric of measurement that we know of. However, there is a way of approximately calculating what in-game weight is equal to. That is by finding an object in Skyrim and its weight and comparing it to its closest real-world counterpart. And fortunately, there's something in Skyrim that's very similar to something in the real world. That is the Imperial Sword. The Imperial Sword is inspired by the gladius, which was a sword used by Roman soldiers, and by looking at it you can tell that there's a very similar resemblance. So it's safe to presume that these two would be at least approximately the same weight. So an Imperial Sword in Skyrim is equal to 10 weight points. I'm not sure what to call the measurement, so I'm just calling it weight points. And a Roman gladius weighs 1 kilogram, or 2.2 pounds. It is sometimes less, the minimum being 0.7 kilograms, but it's a very minimal difference, and it is usually 1 kilogram. And I don't feel like screwing around with decimals, so it's 1 kilogram. So long story short, we can estimate that 10 in-game weight points are roughly equal to 1 kilogram. So now we can estimate the weight of a gold ingot in Skyrim. We're using gold ingots specifically in Skyrim, not only because that's the time in which we're measuring the economy, but also because Skyrim is currently the only game in which gold ingots appear. Surprisingly less, that is 10 times less than an Imperial Sword, so we can estimate that a gold ingot is 100 grams, or 3.5 ounces. I have to mention the imperial system because a huge chunk of my audience is American, so I have to use the imperial system as well. But like, seriously guys, why? Why do you still use the imperial system? It's 2022. And the price of a gold ingot is 100 septims. Therefore, the price of gold in Tamriel per kilogram would be 10 times that, of course, which would of course be 1,000 septims per kilogram. So the value of the septim in Tamriel would be worth 1 out of 1,000 kilograms of gold. Now even with this information, it's still hard to convert the septim to a real world currency because as of 2022, no country still uses the gold standard. But here's what we can do to roughly estimate it. The United Kingdom, the only country that I could find data on with this matter, abandoned the gold standard in September 1931. But in the same year, just prior to the UK doing so, the price of gold was 120.81 pounds per kilogram. So if we were to base it off the United Kingdom's currency in 1931, that would mean that 1 septim would be equal to 2.4 shillings. But that's not what we want to do. We want to convert it to the United Kingdom's modern economy. And fortunately, with the inflation calculator, we can do this. So 0.12 pounds or 2.4 shillings in 1931 is equal to 9.09 pounds in 2022. And with that, we finally have our answer. From this information, we calculated that 1 septim is equal to £9 and 2 shillings, which in turn is equal to 15 Australian dollars and 50 cents, or $10.68. Now, of course, this video was largely conjecture because it's nigh on impossible to convert a fictional currency from a fictional universe to a real currency in a real universe. But alas, it was a fun and educational video to make for me, and I hope it was a fun and educational video for you guys to watch. Glad to be back. Hopefully I remain that way, and I will see you in the next one.